Hi, my name is Michael Miller, and I am happy to show you the pickleball proposal for the Clifton Recreation Committee. So I want you to just think about something for a moment. Before today ends, tens of thousands of people will have been out enjoying the game of pickleball. Tens of thousands of people. So before we begin, the question might be, well, who are you, Mike Miller? Why should we listen to you? Well, I've been playing pickleball since 2019. I'm a former Passaic County USA Pickleball Ambassador, and the job of the ambassador is to basically promote the sport in the area. And there's ambassadors all across the country. I'm a USA Pickleball credentialed level 2 referee at the moment, hopefully be certified by the end of the summer. I'm the co-founder of the Clifton Pickleball Facebook group that has approximately 170 members. And I'm also a instructor for pickleball, and I've taught about 150 students to date. So I love teaching pickleball and introducing people to the game. So what is pickleball? Pickleball is a paddle sport that started back in 1965. It uses a paddle similar to a ping pong paddle. You hit a wiffle ball over a badminton, or excuse me, on a badminton-sized court over a tennis net, and the net's a little bit lower. That's one of the things that annoys tennis players and pickleball players when we play on the same court is we have to keep changing the height of the net. So that's why dedicated pickleball courts are a luxury. So really, the only things you need to play pickleball are three things: a paddle, some balls, and some comfortable shoes. And then when you look at the overall size of the court, in this image, the top image is a standard tennis court, and the lower image is two pickleball courts superimposed on that same tennis court. So you can see that the court size is much smaller, which makes it much nicer as you'll learn in the characteristics of the game here. So as I mentioned, getting involved in pickleball is very inexpensive. It's multi-generational. Kids as young as 8 to folks older than 80 can play. It's very family friendly. I was at a tournament one time getting ready to referee, and I was sitting in the stands watching a game, and I heard this little boy in the family sitting in front of me say to his mom, "Oh, it's so cool that we can watch Grandma play in this tournament." So here's a younger middle school kid watching his grandmother play, and I'm sure that they've played together as well, and that happens all the time. And there's not many sports where you can say people can do that. It's not a family sport like that. The exercise that you get playing pickleball, it's not a very strenuous game. It can be depending on the level that you play at, but it doesn't have to be whatsoever. But what it does do is it helps with better balance, which we all know starts to wane in our later years, and encourages quicker reflexes, which again, we all know starts to wane in our later years. These days, you hear more and more about mental health and how one of the plagues that we have in society, especially as the baby boomers get older, is loneliness. Well, trust me, if you get involved in pickleball, you will not be lonely. You'll meet all kinds of nice people, and everyone's out there to enjoy the game, enjoy the beautiful weather, and just enjoy being together. So that helps with social connections, as well as it kind of decreases the level of depression because you are with people, you're not alone. And then there's gender equity, as we hear the word equity these days in the news, with men's, women's, and mixed competitions, very similar to tennis. It doesn't matter the gender, everyone's playing, everyone enjoys the game. One thing I wanted to address that I had heard was that Clifton actually has some thoughts on pickleball courts being placed in the city. There are 3 parks with 2 pickleball courts per park. Well, that sounds great. However, when you learn more about the game and when you play the game and when you see how the game works, it's a very fast game. Sometimes you can be on the court for, say, 7 minutes and the game is over. So what happens is everyone either comes off the court or, depending on the people that are there, you might split the winners and then two new people come on. So the game is constantly churning with new people. And that's why it's a very social sport, because you get to meet more people, get to play more games. By spreading those courts out across the city, you're basically dividing the population, the pickleball population, and you're making it more difficult for people to enjoy those social interactions. It's just as kind of a little joke, when I had gone to the second city council meeting to talk about pickleball, I mentioned that I designed the new city pool. And so what I had done was I looked at the way a pool's set up and I said, this is perfect. And what I did was I took the liberty to actually design the pool. I placed 2 lanes at 5 different parks. So we have a 10-lane pool, but it's spread out so other people can enjoy it around the city. Now, of course, that's tongue-in-cheek, and no one would ever do that. And it doesn't make any sense because everybody competing in a swimming pool competes at the same time with each other, and it goes over and over depending on age groups or whatever. Well, that's the same thing with pickleball. If you separate it out and you split the game apart, it just ruins the way that the game was designed to be played together. So let me show you my first proposal. My first proposal is a pickleball complex at the Athenia Steel Sports Complex. Now, I had not been to the Athenia Steel Sports Complex until last year. I believe was my first time there. I dropped my daughter off to play lacrosse, and I'm like, wow, this is such a beautiful place. I was very impressed with what has been done over there. There's a lot of real estate, as you can see in this overhead image. There are 2 large soccer fields up here in the top. We've got a smaller soccer field here, ample parking in the middle, and we have artificial turf football field with lacrosse markings, as well as the smaller soccer field here. What I'm focused on is the area right down here on the bottom and this adjacent parking lot. This is the perfect place for a pickleball complex. So if we zoom in a little bit, look at that area, that L-shaped area, and if you look at that space, it's already cleared ground, mostly level, but it's already cleared. It's prime, ready to go. The complex that I'm proposing is that we drop in 16 pickleball courts. Now, I know some of you may have fallen off your chair when I just said that, 16 pickleball courts, but let me explain. One thing is it doesn't have to obviously be done at the same time. For example, these 9 courts right here could be all done together. And let's zoom in just a little bit because I want to explain some things to you. These 9 courts up here could be done together with the covered pavilion, and then these 7 courts could come later. But what's interesting about this is that there is nowhere that I'm aware of north of Florida that has 9 pickleball courts on the East Coast as we do, and definitely not in the state of New Jersey. So this is a big complex. This is a nice setup. Now let me explain to you why I'm looking at this high number of courts. The 2 closest complexes are in Livingston and Brookdale Park. In Livingston, they built 6 courts at a middle school, and at Brookdale Park, they built 6 courts right next to the tennis courts there. So I would highly suggest going to visit those courts if you'd like and see what they're all about. And if you do it on the weekend, you'll get a better appreciation about what I'm ready to tell you. Those 6 pickleball courts, at least I know at Livingston, on the weekends can have 50 to 60 people waiting to play. That's not even including the 24 people that are out there playing. If you're playing doubles, which most of the time you do play doubles, there's that many people waiting to play. Now, Brookdale's a little different situation in that it's a pay-to-play park. So here it's a county park. You have to pay to go play on those pickleball courts. What you see on your screen now is my proposal. So let me explain what you're looking at. So obviously the blue and the green are different courts. The orange are benches. They're covered dual-sided benches. Obviously this is all out in the open, and when you're out in the open in the summertime in the sun, it gets very hot. So this gives a little bit of place for people to sit with some reprieve. There's also the white dots. The white dots are lights. Lights are very important, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then there's a covered pavilion that would allow for maybe vending machines, or there would be a place to hold classes, or groups could meet to learn about pickleball. There's many, obviously, uses for a covered pavilion. And then, of course, there's an adjacent parking lot, which is perfect. Let me show you a little bit more detail about these benches. This is the bench with the roof, all steel construction. This bench is actually located at the 2 new pickleball courts in Little Falls. This is a really nice setup with these benches because they are very convenient. You can sit there, watch both sides. Now, in this scenario, Little Falls only has courts here on the left side. They're beautiful courts. Again, I would highly recommend you go take a look at them. There are some challenges with those courts, in my opinion. One being that they're too close, and that can be very dangerous. And I've seen it happen where people just cross each other trying to go for 2 balls that are going the opposite direction and almost collide. We don't need any injuries, especially in the game of pickleball. So these are the benches that I would recommend that we place in our complex. Next are the lights. Little Falls installed they installed their whole new complex at the same time, but they installed these LED light fixtures. And if you know anything about LEDs, if you have an LED light in your house or lamps in your house, those bulbs, they draw very little amperage. They're very energy efficient, and they put out a lot of light, very bright light. You can get them at different color temperatures, beautiful lights. So what they did in Little Falls is, in my opinion, the best practice on these lights. Now, what's unique about these lights is if we look at the light pole in the second photo, there's a little orange strobe here. So these lights are on timers. All the lights in the pickleball complex are on timer or one timer. And what you do is when it starts to get dark and you activate the lights with this push button here on the pole. After about 20 minutes, this strobe will start to flash. And I don't know what the time delay is there. It might be 5 minutes. Not really sure. It might be 3 minutes. But what it does is it just gives you a visual indicator, hey, that the lights are going to shut off. So someone runs over, hits the button, resets the lights, and back to pickleball it goes. So that's it's a great setup the way they did these lights. So let's go to Plan B, a second pickleball complex idea. Now, what's interesting, and someone told me this one time, is Plan B, if it were any good, would be Plan A. But Plan B is an interesting setup, and this was the one that I was proposing early on in 2019 when I went to City Council to talk about this because of the fact that I had heard about the 6 pickleball courts being spread around the city, and I didn't want to see money wasted. To me, if the idea was in Oak Ridge Park, which is here on the map, if the idea was to resurface some tennis courts there or redo them really, pour new concrete, the whole deal, why waste it on tennis courts? Just as an aside, there are over 24 tennis courts in the city of Clifton. And I did some research over the last couple of weeks in preparation for this presentation. There are 84 public tennis courts. That's not even including the private tennis courts in Passaic County. 84 public tennis courts in Passaic County. Of those 84 tennis courts, Clifton actually houses 31% of the tennis courts in Passaic County. So there's lots of tennis courts in Clifton. So going on to Plan B, Oak Ridge Park. So if we look at Oak Ridge Park, we'll give you a different view here. This is Clifton Avenue. We have Oak Ridge Park and the baseball field. The 3 areas that we're going to look at are these 3 highlighted in yellow. Up here in the top right-hand corner is a parking lot. Okay, this is a city parking lot that is used during the day, most likely by the bank, as well as probably businesses across Clifton Avenue. So this is a parking lot that already exists. It does need to be repaved. It's in bad shape. Down here, we have some courts, tennis courts, and a piece of pavement I'll talk about. And down here, we have some homes that I want to draw your attention to. So these three blocks, the 2 tennis courts and this piece of pavement, which was most likely street hockey at one time, are what we're going to focus on. So how could pickleball courts lay into that space? So here we go. We have 6 pickleball courts and 3 benches I just showed you. So let's zoom in on that a little bit. Here you see the 6 pickleball courts and the 3 benches. I could easily foresee a pathway going from the parking lot coming down into this court complex, and you would have 6 courts tucked in here. So what made this Plan B for me was the fact that now that I know a little bit more about pickleball than I did 2 years ago, there's a couple of drawbacks. One is 6 courts, as I mentioned in Livingston and Brookdale Park. The other drawback that has come to light is sound. In some communities where the homes are very close to the courts, they hear the balls being hit with the paddles. And then they obviously complain because of the noise pollution, and it makes sense. I understand it. Well, when you look at this park, this is why this is Plan B per se, there are homes right here. Now, in Little Falls, if you go to see those courts, there's a couple homes that are much, much closer than these houses are to this park. But here you can see that there's at least 5 houses right here that are very close proximity. So there is a method that could be employed in this specific complex, and that's sound barriers. So on this fence, they make an acoustic fence covering that could go on the fence that goes around this. So you could do this on 2 sides. So these 2 sides would block, attenuate the noise from reaching these houses here and the houses over here on this street. You could also go one step further, and you could put in a third wall if you were really concerned about the sound coming down to these folks. They're actually pretty far away, these houses. You can see it's from the outfield of a baseball field all the way over and on to get to these homes. So that would be a stretch, in my opinion, of noise. But nonetheless, why not fail safe and make sure that the neighbors are happy with pickleball courts in their neighborhood? Lastly, I'd explain about this. This is the product AcoustiFence. AcoustiFence are these panels. They can be custom made in whatever size is necessary, and they actually have landscape attachments. And in this picture, they show how they turned it into what looks like a hedgerow. That would be great for those homes here as they're looking into this complex. All they would see is a row of hedges. And then this last image is showing the sound treatment around an existing pickleball complex that was put in place in another city. So I just want to give you these last considerations to think of and keep in mind when looking at a pickleball complex, adapting best practices from other pickleball facilities. I've had the luxury of going and playing at other facilities around the country and seeing what is being utilized. That's why I try to bring these ideas back to what we're looking at here. Consult with the pickleball community. Obviously, if you're dealing with pickleball people, they can best help tell you because of what to do, maybe what to employ. I'm not talking a whole bunch of people, just a handful. That way, it's not being developed in a vacuum without input from the community. Lights are essential. Lights in the fall and winter are very important because it gets so dark in our region of the country once the time changes that 4:30, 5 o'clock, it's dark, but there's still plenty of weather, plenty of day left that we could be enjoying pickleball. And just as a side note on that, there is a park up in West Patterson, or a woodland park, excuse me, that's up in the woods. And they have hybrid courts, as Clifton does now, which is basically pickleball courts painted on their tennis courts. And they have lights up there. So what's nice about that is that in the wintertime, people are up there playing pickleball, or they could be playing tennis, obviously, because they have lights. And I say the winter because this last winter, we played almost every month, I believe, people were out playing pickleball. There was even one event or one episode where the folks wanted to go play pickleball. It had snowed. When they went up to the courts in Woodland Park, it was covered with snow. So they got out some shovels, shoveled the whole court, turned on the lights, and played. So lights are definitely essential. Shaded seating. As I mentioned, you're out in the open. The sun's beating down on you. You need someplace to sit in the shade when you're not playing. A windscreen is a great addition because it cuts down on the crosswinds, and I'm not sure what the crosswinds are like there at the Athenia Steel Complex. I want to just talk about the pickleball tax, which I highly discourage. Little Falls, 2 brand new courts, beautiful complex. Again, I think the courts are a little too close together for safety, but they're beautiful courts. A great example of what pickleball courts can look like. They were seeing what was happening last year with the pandemic. The Brookdale and Livingston complexes closed down. It was dark. There was only one place to play with lights, and that was Little Falls. So I think that the Recreation Department and the mayor got together and they said, you know what, this is great. Look at all the people that are here. And all of a sudden they saw dollar signs. So what they did is they implemented what I'm labeling the pickleball tax. So now it's very affordable for Little Falls people to play there. Someone like myself who lives, 2 miles away, now you have to pay $100 per person to play over there for the year. That may not sound like a whole lot, but one, why should we have to pay for that? And two, that could be cost prohibitive and actually make people not want to play or not able to play because they can't put that money out. And we've actually seen the majority of people in Clifton Pickleball not go and pay for that pickleball tax over there. Last is restroom facilities. Obviously, when you're out in the open, trying to stay hydrated. Yes, you're sweating, but it would be great. It'd be a nice wish list, air quote wish list to have restrooms at the site. And then I want to leave you with this last thought, and that's free private lessons for the committee. Every week, if you've been in the Clifton community group on Facebook, I post something about having a pickleball clinic. It's a free clinic. I have all the paddles. I have the balls. I don't charge anything because, one, you're not allowed to do that on our city courts. But I just try to introduce more and more people to the game. And sure enough, you put it out there and people will come. So we've already had probably at least, I think about 24 people go through this summer. Just within the last couple of weeks, I've taught that many people how to play the game. They love the game. It's great to see new people coming out all the time. I had a family of 5 come out. We taught the 3 kids, the mom and dad. So I'm just wanted to offer it to you, the committee, that if you want to learn how to play, and I highly encourage you to come and, if not watch the game, play in the game, please let me know, and I would love to teach you how to play the game. It takes about 35, 40 minutes to learn, and then you're going to consistently learn after that as the more you play. And on this last slide here are just some of the resources that are links to articles that are very informative. There's a medical insight article. There's how pickleball caters to different ages, put out by a group in Utah. The popularity of pickleball, Fox 5 News, they put that out last month with a video. And if you just go to Google News and type in the word pickleball, you'll see many, many stories about it. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to hopefully give some insight into an input into a new pickleball complex, if Clifton's willing to do it, and know that a complex would not go to waste, that if you build it, they will come. I guarantee it. And it's a great thing for the community of Clifton. So with that, again, thank you.